No warning, no thunderclap. Just another Tuesday, until 10 a.m., when everything snapped. A sterile office, the scent of overpriced coffee, and one rehearsed speech ended years of loyalty. No shouting, no begging. Just silence, and flowers, wine, and a desperate attempt to fake control. But home wasn't a refuge. It was a stage. Applause replaced with ridicule. Love replaced with calculation. The wife, cold, mocking. The daughter, calling another man Dad. And the boss who fired him, sharing more than just corporate strategy with his wife. They whispered about a future without him, unaware he was already setting their end in motion. A lawyer, a private investigator. A paternity test, evidence stacked like firewood, ready to burn. And when the time came, he didn't knock. He entered like a verdict, not seeking revenge, but delivering consequences. No more lies, no more masks. Just one final act, cold, public, devastating. Because sometimes the quietest man at the table is the one who's already decided how it ends. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watched this video. I value every one of your comments. So let's get started. The day broke like any other Tuesday, sliding effortlessly into the familiar cadence of a routine I had followed for 7 unwavering years. At precisely 5:30 a.m., the sharp, insistent beeping of the alarm shattered the early morning stillness, a jarring noise that seemed to slice through the lingering haze of sleep. But as always, I resisted the allure of the snooze button, an indulgence I had never allowed myself. Discipline wasn't just a practice for me, it was a personal doctrine. Next to me, Ivy lay still, her dark hair fanned out across the pillow like a shadowed halo. Leaning in, I pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, a quiet, familiar gesture she never seemed to stir from. Whether she felt it or not, I could never be sure. Pulling myself out of bed, I was met by the familiar chill of the floor against my feet, a sensation that brought me fully awake. The kitchen, where the comforting promise of freshly brewed coffee awaited, was my next destination. Our kitchen, an immaculate display of polished countertops and flawless organization, stood as a testament to Ivy's unyielding commitment to an aesthetic that could have graced any lifestyle magazine. At times, I wondered if her pursuit of perfection was more important to her than anything else. But I had learned to coexist with it, convincing myself that I loved the order she demanded. With a steaming cup in hand, I made the drive to the office, ready to face another day as a mid-level manager, a role I had inhabited for 7 devoted years. Had someone suggested I would be walking out of that office by mid-morning, shattered and unanchored, I would have dismissed it with a laugh. I was the quintessential employee, consistent, reliable, always surpassing expectations. Late nights, weekend shifts, additional tasks, I embraced them all without hesitation. My dependability wasn't just a reputation, it was my identity. But that sense of identity began to crumble at 10 a.m. Damien, my supervisor, stood behind his oversized, imposing desk, his expression a carefully maintained mask of professional neutrality. "Come in," he beckoned, his voice a calculated mix of authority and affected sympathy. Damien, tall with slicked-back hair and an ever-present smugness, had always seemed distant, but not cruel, until that moment. "This is about budget adjustments and restructuring," he began, his fingers interlaced in a show of false sincerity. "It's not personal. You've been an asset, genuinely, but the board has made the decision to eliminate your position." The impact of his words felt like a physical blow. My stomach twisted, a cold wave of disbelief washing over me. For years I had been the provider, the steadfast husband, the dependable father. In a single moment, that foundation gave way. "We're offering 3 months of severance and extending health benefits for that period," Damien continued, his tone rehearsed, mechanical. Whether he actually cared or was merely completing another task on his agenda, I couldn't tell. I signed the paperwork without truly registering the words. My body operated on instinct, but my mind had gone numb. In the mirrored walls of the descending elevator, I stared at my reflection. A crisp blue shirt, neatly pressed trousers, polished shoes. I looked unchanged, yet I felt like an empty shell, a stranger. For 20 minutes, I sat motionless in my car. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I simply reevaluated everything I thought I knew. Rather than going straight home to confront reality, I sought a sense of normalcy. I drove to Trader Joe's, filling a cart with ingredients for Ivy's favorite pasta, a good bottle of red wine, and a bouquet of lilies and hydrangeas. A small, extravagant gesture meant to reassure her and perhaps myself that I could still be the man. She married. Back at home, I transformed the kitchen into a scene of celebration. Fresh pasta, a simmering tomato sauce with basil and garlic, a crisp salad with homemade dressing. I even unearthed candlesticks to set a proper table. It was a carefully crafted illusion, a desperate attempt to hold on to something familiar. By 5:30 p.m., Ivy returned home with Clara, our 10-year-old daughter. Clara's perceptive gaze swept over the scene, a hint of confusion in her wide eyes. Ivy, immaculate as ever in a blazer and heels, arched an eyebrow. "What's all this?" she demanded, her tone sharp. "Just a surprise dinner," I said, forcing a casual smile. "Something happened at work, but we can talk after we eat." Her eyes narrowed. "No, tell me now. You don't do this on a Tuesday. What's going on?" Caught between maintaining the illusion for Clara's sake and respecting Ivy's demand, I faltered. But there was no escape. "I lost my job," I confessed, my voice steadier than I felt. "Budget cuts. But I have severance and I'll find something new. We'll be fine." Silence stretched between us before Ivy's lips curled in a bitter smile. "So this is your guilt feast? A show put on by an unemployed fool?" Her words hit like a slap. Clara stared, fear and confusion mixing in her eyes. Without warning, Ivy seized the bouquet, tossing it into the kitchen sink, water splashing across the counter. My chest tightened. "See, Clara?" she hissed. "That's what failure looks like." The walls seemed to close in, but I held on to a fragile smile, swallowing my pride, saying nothing. Not in front of my daughter. That night, after Clara was finally asleep, Ivy's fury erupted like a storm. Her voice was a relentless cascade of accusations: financial strain, her social reputation, the Aspen vacation she'd counted on, and the shame she would suffer among her friends. Not once did she pause to ask how I was coping. Overwhelmed by her cruelty, I withdrew to the living room, numb with disbelief. Gazing up at the ceiling, the truth crashed down on me. I had ignored countless warning signs in my blind devotion. Ivy's obsession with appearances had always been glaringly obvious, a constant drive to impress her shallow circle of friends. Yet I had built a life with her, raising a family alongside a woman who saw me as little more than a source of income. The next morning, she swept out for her Pilates class without so much as acknowledging me. That was when I decided to take a hard look at our finances, only to discover a hidden credit card she had secretly opened 6 months prior, burdened with over $15,000 in extravagant charges, designer bags, luxury spa weekends, and more. And then there was a personal loan of $22,000. Where had all that money gone? My mind raced with suspicions. More designer accessories, cosmetic procedures, maybe even a secret savings fund. But the sharpest sting was the betrayal itself, almost as painful as losing my job. When she returned, phone in hand, she was complaining to Rhonda about how humiliating my unemployment was for our family. It was then I saw the cold truth of our marriage. Ours was not a partnership, but an arrangement. We were strangers, living together only out of obligation, and she had likely been counting the days until our collapse long before I lost my job. 3 days into my joblessness, I still clung to civility, telling Ivy that I was actively applying for positions, searching for a way forward. Her response was a dismissive eye roll. That night, once again exiled to the couch, I tried to settle in, believing Clara was fast asleep. But just past midnight, muffled whispers filtered through the thin door separating the living room from the hallway. Ivy was speaking softly, her voice low but unmistakable. Clara's quiet voice asked, "Mom, when are we going to live with my real daddy?" My body went rigid. "Real daddy?" she whispered back. "I don't want to stay with this clown. I'm scared of clowns." A wave of cold horror washed over me. Clara, my own daughter, saw me as a joke, something to be feared. Ivy's voice tried to hush her. "Soon, sweetie. Once I get the finances sorted, we'll be with Damien. Just a little longer." Damien, my former boss, the man who had just fired me. The realization struck like a knife. I forced myself to remain still, pretending to sleep, as my entire world shattered. Clara, the child I had raised, was calling another man, my boss, her real father, and Ivy was plotting a future with him. I lay frozen, consumed by a storm of shock and betrayal. As their whispers died away and Ivy returned to the master bedroom, I remained motionless, paralyzed by the enormity of the truth. Not only was she unfaithful, but it was with Damien. And Clara, was she even my biological child? Sleep eluded me as memories flooded back. Damien's overly familiar demeanor, his frequent invitations, the special attention he paid to Ivy at company events. I had naively dismissed it all as harmless charm. But the truth had been there all along, waiting to be uncovered. By morning, I was done being the oblivious husband. If they saw me as a fool, they would soon realize the darkness that lay beneath. I dressed without a sound, slipped out of the house, and drove straight to a law firm I had once consulted for estate planning. "We can see you at 09:30, the receptionist informed me. The drive felt like a surreal dream, my reflection in the rearview mirror a hollow-eyed stranger. When Margaret Bennett, a veteran attorney known for handling high-stakes divorces and paternity disputes, greeted me, I laid everything bare. My job loss, Ivy's betrayal, Clara's whispered confession. Her expression grew serious. "Damien Collins?" she confirmed, her pen tapping a notepad. "Yes," I replied. "The CEO who fired me. I want every legal option explored. Alienation of affection, paternity fraud, all of it. I have nothing left to lose." Margaret's gaze hardened as she leafed through a thick binder, searching for the laws that would become the weapons in my fight. Margaret's voice remained composed as she explained. "In certain regions, the concept of alienation of affection is a recognized legal claim. Our objective will be to demonstrate that an extramarital affair occurred, one that inflicted genuine harm on your marriage." She paused briefly. "Given your concerns about potential paternity fraud, this situation becomes even more intricate. We will need a DNA test for your daughter, along with any solid evidence you can gather, text messages, photographs, anything indicating a relationship between your wife and this other man." Leaning forward, I steadied my voice, making sure it carried a note of determination. "I'm hiring a private investigator. I want irrefutable proof, photos, videos, anything that leaves no doubt." I overheard her discussing plans to leave me once her finances are secure. Margaret's expression remained unchanged. "Then time is of the essence. Secure your evidence, and we can move forward with legal action. But be aware, these cases can become contentious. If your wife and Damien choose to fight this with extensive legal fees, it could turn into a prolonged conflict." My jaw tightened, but I nodded. "I'm prepared. They won't escape this unscathed." Margaret handed me a folder containing essential documents, including instructions for serving divorce papers and details for a discreet paternity test. She also provided a trusted recommendation for a private investigator. After signing a retainer check, I left her office, burdened by a sense of determination. If my wife and Damien believed they could betray me without consequences, they were mistaken. That same day, I contacted Carl Donovan, the investigator Margaret recommended. A seasoned professional with a military background, Carl displayed a calm, unflinching demeanor. After hearing my account, he asked direct, methodical questions. "Do you suspect your wife is meeting with Damien in person on a regular basis?" he inquired. "Yes," I replied, bitterness coloring my tone. "Most likely at his office or various hotels." Carl jotted down notes. "Understood. I'll begin by tracking her daily activities. If they're being reckless, it shouldn't take long to uncover the truth." I provided Carl with photographs of Ivy, her car's license plate number, and a list of her usual routines: Pilates classes, spa appointments, and more. Carl acknowledged with a curt nod. "I'll be in touch." Less than a week later, my phone buzzed with a message from Carl. "Got them. Check your email for the photos." A wave of dread washed over me as I opened the email. The images were unmistakable. Ivy and Damien captured together, their actions leaving no room for doubt. Damien's smug grin was even visible through a partially lowered car window. Fury gripped me, but beneath it was a cold, calculated resolve. I forwarded the evidence to Margaret with a simple note: "Let's proceed." Instead of confronting Ivy, I maintained my composure, pretending to focus on job hunting while she remained oblivious. Behind the facade, I was orchestrating a meticulous response. Divorce was only the beginning. I intended to destroy Damien's reputation. In my state, outdated laws still permitted lawsuits for alienation of affection, provided I could prove the affair began before my job loss. Combined with the possibility of paternity fraud, Damien might soon face a scandal with serious consequences. Clara was the painful variable in all of this. Innocent and unaware, she was still a child I cared for, regardless of biology. But I needed the truth. Using a discreet mail-in kit, I arranged for a covert DNA test. One night, I carefully collected a sample from Clara's toothbrush while she slept. The results arrived 2 weeks later, 0% probability of paternity. Clara was not my biological daughter. A crushing weight settled over me, a mix of heartbreak, anger, and a strange sense of clarity. Everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie. I immediately contacted Margaret, who confirmed that the paternity results would be crucial in a paternity fraud case, but advised me to keep Clara's best interests in mind. "Legally, you are not required to support a child who is not yours," she stated. "But the emotional bond is another matter entirely. You must decide what role you wish to play in her life going forward." I gazed out of the window of the modest apartment I had quietly rented near Clara's school, steeling myself for the inevitable separation. "I don't know," I admitted. "I'm furious, but I still care about her." Margaret's words came laced with caution. "Make sure you think this through," she advised, her tone grave. "Everything is about to spiral out of control." I ended the call, feeling the weight in my chest intensify, but my resolve only grew stronger. The seeds of betrayal planted by Ivy were on the brink of erupting into chaos, and she would be forced to face the consequences she had sown. Amid this turmoil, I channeled my focus into expanding my consulting business with Russell, the one person I could tentatively trust, while methodically setting the stage for an inevitable confrontation. The legal wheels were already turning. Preparations were underway for a lawsuit accusing Ivy of paternity fraud, a claim that demanded reimbursement for the years I had unknowingly supported a child that wasn't mine. Alongside it, a suit for alienation of affection was being drafted against Damien, targeting him directly. But this wasn't merely about legal action. I sought a reckoning. A quiet, private exchange of documents wasn't enough. Damien's carefully crafted image needed to be shattered, and Ivy needed to witness the collapse of her so-called golden ticket in a public spectacle. Carl, my private investigator, confirmed that Ivy had been spending more time at Damien's office, likely coordinating their next moves. I decided to confront them there, but not without taking precautions. I enlisted 2 seasoned security agents from a reputable firm, both imposing, dressed in understated black suits. One was named Baxter. Our plan was clear: Ivy would receive the divorce papers, the notice of paternity fraud, and the lawsuit documents. Damien would also be served, but I had a far more dramatic scene in mind for him. Carl's investigation had uncovered more than I initially expected. Damien wasn't only entangled with my wife, he was also having an affair with the spouse of one of his company's accountants, a man named Gerald. Gerald was a formidable presence, tall, athletic, and not someone easily intimidated. Armed with this knowledge, I sent Gerald an anonymous message. "Be at your boss's office at 4 p.m. tomorrow if you want to know the truth." Attached was a brief but damning video of his wife and Damien. At 3:55 p.m. the next day, I stood in the sleek, glass-enclosed lobby of Damien's corporate tower, my security team flanking me. Their silent, imposing presence drew a few curious glances. We stepped into the elevator, the quiet hum only heightening the tension that coiled in my chest. A visitor's badge, secured in advance through Damien's assistant while I was still a known face, granted me access. No one suspected anything. Not yet. The elevator doors slid open, revealing Ivy at the reception desk, impeccably dressed in a figure-hugging skirt, a stylish blouse, and towering heels that accentuated her already striking height. Her welcoming smile vanished the instant she saw me. "Jacob, what are you doing here?" she stammered, her voice faltering as she registered the two men behind me. "I'm here to see Damien," I answered evenly. "Is he available?" Her eyes flitted nervously between me and the security guards. He's in a meeting." "Then I'll wait," I stated, making it clear that I wouldn't be deterred. Other employees exchanged uneasy glances, sensing the thickening tension. Moments later, the elevator chimed again, and a towering figure stormed out. Gerald, his expression blazing with fury. His powerful frame seemed to cut through the uneasy air like a blade. "Where is he?" Gerald's voice thundered, his fists clenched. "That bastard is dead." Ivy's complexion drained of color, panic seizing her features. "Go ahead, Ivy," I urged, my voice cold. "Tell him where Damien is, or should I?" Her panic was undeniable, but she tried to maintain a semblance of composure. "He's in the conference room, but please let me—" "Oh, I'm sure you'd love to get him," I interrupted, my voice laced with scorn. "Just like in the Marriott parking lot, wasn't it?" Her face flushed with a mix of embarrassment and fury. "You don't know what you're talking about." Silently, I unlocked my phone and showed her a damning photograph. Ivy, unmistakably caught with her head in Damien's lap. Her shock was instant, her face drained of color. Around us, hushed gasps rippled, whispers spreading like wildfire. The receptionist's hand flew to her mouth. "You thought I didn't know?" I whispered, leaning in. "I have all the proof I need." Before she could respond, Gerald's voice erupted again. "Where is Collins?" Without waiting, he charged down the hallway toward the glass-walled conference room. I followed, Ivy trailing behind, her steps unsteady. My guards maintained their silent, formidable presence. Inside the room, Damien was seated with two board members and the HR director. Their conversation halted abruptly as Gerald crashed through the door with a forceful burst. Jacob stood abruptly, his face a storm of shock and simmering rage. His gaze swept the room before locking onto Damien, whose confident facade faltered the instant their eyes met. A flash of panic crossed Damien's features. "Care to explain yourself?" Damien's voice was strained, but Jacob's lips curved into a cold, contemptuous smile. "Oh, this? Just some unresolved matters, Damien. Very personal ones." Jacob's voice cut through the tense atmosphere like a blade. Ivy, desperate to defuse the situation, interjected, her tone steady, yet laced with anxiety. "Please, let's handle this privately." Her worried eyes flitted to the stunned board members, but Jacob remained unyielding. "No," he declared, his voice resonating off the glass walls. "This happens here, in front of everyone. Because this man," he jabbed a finger toward Damien, "thought he could fire me, steal my wife, wreck my life, and walk away without facing the consequences." Color drained from Damien's face. This is absurd. Some kind of prank? Not a prank, Jacob countered, his voice unwavering. I've got proof. Proof of your years-long affair with my wife. And about my daughter, Clara. Turns out she's biologically yours. Deny it. A sealed envelope slid across the polished table, coming to rest before Damien. DNA results. 0% chance she's mine, Jacob stated coldly. A gasp slipped from the HR director's lips. As murmurs swept through the room, Gerald, another betrayed spouse, stepped forward, raising his phone. You're a disgrace, Damien. Here's the evidence. Footage of you with my wife. The video played, grainy yet unmistakable, capturing Damien entering a hotel room with a woman who was not Ivy. Jacob's glare never wavered. Did you think you were his only affair, Ivy? He sneered. Ivy's face went pale, her voice a broken whisper. How could you? You promised we'd start over after I left Jacob. Hands raised defensively, Damien stammered. This is all lies. You can't prove anything. Actually, we can. Jacob gestured toward two men who approached. Damien Collins, consider yourself served. One of the men, Baxter, handed Damien a stack of legal documents. Lawsuits for alienation of affection and more. The second man, Juan, addressed Ivy. These are for you. Divorce papers and a suit for paternity fraud. He dropped the documents when she didn't reach for them. Tears filled Ivy's eyes. Jacob, please, can we talk? Talk? Jacob's tone was razor sharp. Like when you ridiculed me, called me a failure in front of Clara, and schemed to empty our joint account for a new life with him? We're beyond talking. Desperate, Damien fumbled for his phone. I'm calling security. This is harassment. Go ahead, Jacob challenged. Baxter and Juan are with me. Your security won't intimidate them. But before Damien could dial, Gerald lunged, seizing Damien by the collar and slamming him against the glass with a shuddering thud. You destroyed my marriage too, he spat, punctuating his words with a brutal slap. The room descended into chaos. A board member bolted, likely seeking help. Blood trickled from Damien's lip as he crumpled to the floor. Someone yelled for security, but Jacob leaned down, his voice a venomous whisper. This is just the start. I will drown you in legal fees, ruin your reputation, and I already have a job lined up with one of your competitors, who are thrilled to see you fall. Ivy surged forward, frantic. Jacob, please, don't do this. We can fix things. Fix what? Jacob's voice was glacial. You took everything you wanted, except the money you tried to steal. That's half mine, and I will fight you for every cent. Damien, clutching his bloodied jaw, struggled to his feet. But Jacob was already walking away. Don't even think about pinning this on me, I retorted, my voice unwavering even as anger roared within me. Your own incompetence is why I let you go. For years, Ivy complained about how useless you were. A dry, humorless laugh slipped from my lips. Honestly, you two deserve each other. But guess what? Ivy wasn't the only one you were sneaking around with. Maybe you should run your own company, or just keep collecting women like they're trophies. But none of that will matter once your career is in ruins, I added, each word seething with contempt. In an instant, Gerald lunged, snatching Damien's phone and hurling it against the wall. The device shattered on impact, fragments of glass and plastic scattering across the floor. The HR director and another board member stood frozen, horror etched across their faces. Security immediately surged forward, but Baxter and Juan stepped between them, calmly explaining that we were here to deliver legal documents, and that Gerald's outburst was a separate issue. The tension thickened as security tried to force us out. Baxter remained steadfast, his gaze unwavering. We're leaving, I ordered, catching Gerald's eye. With a reluctant snarl, he turned away from Damien, who lay sprawled and bleeding. You're lucky I don't finish this, Gerald muttered, storming out. Damien lay humiliated, blood staining his face. The HR director looked on the verge of collapse, while Ivy stood amid the chaos, tears streaming down her cheeks. She reached out to me. "Jacob, please, we can fix this. I'm sorry." "Save your apologies," I snapped, my tone like a blade. "Tell it to the court." I turned without another word, striding away with Baxter and Juan at my side. Only when the elevator doors sealed shut did I release a trembling breath, the weight of everything crashing down on me. But beneath it all, a cold, unyielding satisfaction simmered. The true conflict would be settled in court, not in that boardroom. But I had wanted them to see. The reality of their betrayal laid bare, and I saw it in their faces. The legal war that followed was brutal, but the outcome was decisive. Damien's scandals unraveled him, his affairs exposed, and his resignation forced by the board. His reputation was in ruins. Ivy wasn't spared. Facing charges of paternity fraud, she was ordered to repay me substantial sums I had provided for Clara's upbringing. DNA tests confirmed that Clara was Damien's daughter, but I chose limited visitation, preserving a fragile connection with the child I had once considered my own. As for Gerald, his own life unraveled, leading to a divorce. Yet he and I emerged together, partners in a new accounting firm. In the end, as the final gavel struck, Ivy and Damien paid dearly, in finances and in reputation, for the lies they had spun. Their web of deceit had only ensnared them. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.